Seahawks and Lions. Monday Night Football. I mean, the one sort of knock on the Seahawks so far is they haven't really played much of anybody. Certainly no great shakes. They played a rookie quarterback making his debut, a backup journeyman backup in Brissett, and then two real backups this past week in Miami. They've seen a little bit of weaponry, at least, with Hill and Waddle. But how big of a step up will the Detroit Lions be from the three teams they've played?
Yeah, I mean, that's not Skylar Thompson coming into the building, so that's going to be different. They definitely have the most talent that they'll have faced. The other thing I would say is they're going to come in and really challenge them physically. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, how do you hold up against that? And when I was going through the tape yesterday, it's fun when you're watching this, and obviously Hall was one of the ones that popped, just seeing what he did defensively. But you know who's good for a game like this was Hankins. Watching Hankins in that game last week, he was excellent in the short yardage stuff. And there's guys like that play in the league forever because you can't move them. And I think that'll be this type of game. I think the Lions will come out and try and mash them because I think we've seen early on in the year the speed and the rush that the Seahawks can generate. I don't think they're going to sit back and drop and throw it 50 times.
So ESPN just had their power rankings yesterday. They put them at number 4. Maybe that's a little hot, but I mean, is that a realistic number for where the Seahawks are right now?
I think it's so early. I think you got to let everything settle. And I think especially since we went to 17 games, I feel like that's further out. Like it used to be, you get to the first quarter of the season, get through 4 games, and it was, okay, we got a handle on it. It feels now like we got to get to week 6 or 7, just kind of let everything settle in. But I do, look, we talked about it before the season started. The first week, I really like this personnel they have on defense. And then it was going to be about, can they come together, new systems, both sides of the ball? How long does it take to get up and going? They hit the ground running. So I'm a believer in this team in terms of, do I think they look like a playoff team? 100%. But I mean, top 4 at this point in time, I think it's too early.
Rewind back, if you would, DJ, to when Sean McVay came to Southern California down there, and how quickly you realized, wow, this guy's innovative. He's a disruptor. He's got an opportunity to really transform this organization. Can you take me back to then? Because I'm feeling a lot of those vibes with Mike from the defensive side of things.
This is incredibly smart how they play, but the energy is very high. They're playing very fast. There's a lot of confidence when you watch the tape on both sides of the ball. And look, give John Schneider a lot of credit as well. I mean, they've got a lot of pieces here. It was a good job to take. And just like when McVay got to the Rams, he had to mentally kind of rehab Jared Goff and some of those other pieces to get them to believe in their talent. But there was talent there as well. I think that's one of the things these places have in common. There was talent there, and it looks like really kind of the right guy at the right time.
So the other thing that we've noticed, and we were going to talk to you about this last week because it was sort of a big talking point for us throughout the week, is he speaks in a way that is more vulnerable than almost any coach I can think of across sports. I mean, he just seems very willing to be wrong, to say that he doesn't know, to say that somebody else is doing it better or understands it better. And if he's willing to do all that with us, I can only imagine what that's like in the building. How rare a quality is that?
Well, I think that's rare, but I also think it's the one key ingredient when you're hiring a coach. But people will say, do you want the disciplinarian? Do you want the players coach? Do we want somebody who relates to players? Do we want somebody who's domineering and sets a standard? At the end of the day, and I think you guys have seen it in every sport that you guys cover, it's authentic guys. You just want people who are real. They're who they are, and there's no pretense, no fakeness about them. So I think even more so maybe than the vulnerability, I think it's just the fact that he's real. He's just a real deal. He's comfortable in his own skin, which sounds pretty basic, but you guys talk to a lot of coaches in a lot of sports. It's actually pretty rare.
Especially at 36 years old and trying to, you come in new and you're replacing a potential Hall of Fame coach and Pete Carroll. I mean, I would think a lot of guys around the NFL would have the instinct to try to prove how smart they are, how great they are, how great their system is, what their credentials are. And it feels like he almost goes out of his way to do the opposite.
Yeah, and I think, some of that is, and look, I'll get to Brock on that one. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but there's nothing worse than the guy who comes in trying to compare himself or be the guy that he just replaced. And Pete, I think he will end up being a Hall of Famer. Obviously, he's a Super Bowl champion. So that would have been a mistake to come in there and try and out Pete Carroll. It's to me it's hats off to him, and not only who he is as a coach, and more so just kind of how he was raised and who he is as a person. He's just very comfortable in who he is.
I would say, DJ, through 3 weeks and 8-9 months as we've gotten to know Mike Macdonald, what jumps out to me the most, and Klatt highlighted this when he jumped on with us yesterday, is many of these young whippersnappers come into it as, I'm the offensive mind. I'm the defensive mind. I got this brilliant scheme. And you have seen it through all these years in the NFL. It strikes me that I know Mike Macdonald calls the defensive signals. He is the acting defensive coordinator. But I don't feel this team being a defensive-minded team, a defensive head coach. I'm seeing a complementary coach that totally understands through data, through scheme, through play calling, like we have to be complementary. And to me, at 36 as a first-timer, that feels a little bit unique. What say you?
Yeah, no, and I think that's where you go back to your McVay comp. It's not normal. Normally you get guys that have an expertise and are kind of on cutting edge in terms of scheme, and we've talked about that before, about where this scheme is defensively. It literally is getting mimicked all over the league. But they're kind of missing that big picture, can't see the forest through the trees type thing. So I think that's why you kind of get those special guys that come along. And I don't want to put him in the Hall of Fame, give him, a gold jacket at this point. I mean, it's just been 3 games, but the message is landing. What he's speaking, what he's preaching to his team, it's landing. And I saw it in the preseason. Like when I saw him come out there in the preseason and we talked it, I'm like, this team is, and for a preseason game, they were flying around the field. They were playing extremely hard on both sides of the ball. So his message, he got that out right when he got there, and everybody's completely bought in.
Talking to Daniel Jeremiah, as we do every week at this time. A couple of weeks ago, after I think the first game of the season, you said you wanted to buy stock in Boye Mafe as a superstar.
Good idea.
Where's that stock looking today? And any chance you'd be thinking about, maybe a slightly smaller buy on Derek Hall to see if it pays off, maybe a penny stock for one day?
Yeah, I knew where you were going, so I pulled up my Derek Hall notes, my pre-draft notes.
I like this.
So Derek Hall coming out was just under 6'3", 254 pounds. He's got really long arms at 34.5. He ran 4.55, which is incredible time for an edge rusher. Long, explosive. They used him as a walk-around rusher there, so they kind of moved him around. Big time close. He struggled a little bit with the better tackles that he went against, so that's where he ended up in the draft, but he played with huge effort and he could really set the edge. So he's one that, when you look, he was my 64th player. So I was, in hindsight, based off what I looked at on tape this last week, I was even low on him. But this is somebody, when you think about explosive, long arms, and plays really, really hard, that's a good foundation with which to build.
It's crazy because, DJ, he was awful last year. I mean, he was.
Yeah. He didn't have a plan. He didn't coming out like there was no rush plan. He had a lot of this stuff in his body, but he just didn't have an idea of how to win. And that takes time for guys. Some guys never figure it out, but there is. I always come back to the effort component. Like if you care, if you show me that you care with your effort, you're going to care in working to get better and developing as a player.
Okay, so along those lines, we had a great chat yesterday about a guy that's eaten up a lot of our airtime. His name is DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Where is DK? I mean, it's unbelievable. He's 26. He's a year older than Cam Rising, for goodness sakes. He's 26 years old. He'll be 27 in November. Where is DK in the hierarchy of the best receivers in the game today?
Well, first of all, he was a great value pick in my fantasy league this year, so he's really helped me get off to a hot start.
Nice.
With DK, so I'll start there. But talent-wise, like there's things, and if we were to use the baseball analogy, he's not a 5-pitch pitcher, but he does the 2 or 3 things that he does as well as anybody in the league. Right. In terms of getting vertical, running away from people, just the horsepower that he has is so rare. So, I mean, are we going to go out there and watch him and Garrett Wilson run comebacks and say he's going to look like Garrett Wilson doing that? No. But he does his 3 things really, really well at an elite level. And I love the fact that Grubb's kind of figuring out different ways to to utilize his skill set. It doesn't just need to be a, go balls, slants, and crossing routes. Like, okay, we can hit you with a little dig and go, which hats off to the pass protection on that one, allowing that one to get uncorked. But, they're finding fun ways to use that.
So is a 3-pitch pitcher a $35 million guy? Because you absolutely know that he's looking at CeeDee Lamb and he's looking at Jamar. He's looking at all these guys that have gotten paid. Hold on, and he's making good money. And when they extended him, I think he was making $20 million at that time. Was like the top of the market or darn near close to it. But he's looking at it with another year to go, going, "Hey man, let's go. I'm one of these guys. Can you pay a 3-pitch guy a 5-pitch salary?"
If you don't, someone else will. I'll guarantee you that. There will be a robust market for what he does, and especially teams that have young quarterbacks that have a guy like that can make your life a lot easier. I think when there was talk a couple years ago that maybe he could be had, and I know for a fact there were teams that were trying to pry him out of there, and that obviously didn't happen. So there'll be a market for him. I mean, last I checked, Mariano Rivera threw 1 pitch, and he might be the greatest
Turned out
closer
pretty
of all
well.
time. Yeah.
I was one of those people at the time saying, even this past offseason, that if it were me, I would have traded DK Metcalf because I don't want to pay a wide receiver that much money. And it has nothing to do with him. I just don't think you get value paying a wide receiver at the top of the market. Where are you on just wide receivers in general? Do you think those guys end up being worth it?
If the first number of your age begins with a 2, I'm okay with going to the top of the market, and especially if I should rephrase that. If we can end the deal in the 2s and not the 3s, then I'm good with it. What I would be a little bit worrisome about is you pay the 30-year-old, the 31-year-old top of the market money, and you're expecting him to be that guy as a 32 to 34-year-old. No thanks. But I think that second contract range and getting someone especially as young as DK is, if you want to take him up to his age 29, age 30 season and put him towards the top of the market, because as we all know, what you see as the top of the market today, 2 years from now, is not going to be the top of the market money.